Joining us now, the senior editor of StateCollege.com from State College, Pennsylvania, Adam Smeltz. Adam, how you doing?
A little bit tired, but otherwise we're hanging in there. How about yourself?
Well, that's about all we can ask for, hanging in there and doing the best that you possibly can. I imagine you're probably tired because you've been chasing what amounts to probably the biggest story in Penn State in 30 years, 40 years, what?
And certainly in anybody's memory, that's for sure.
Now, I want to get started with you, and I know it's sort of an evolving story, and there's also some delicate details to the whole thing. We'll be very careful to use terms like alleged as much as possible, and I know that there are certain things that you may or may not be able to get into, but just from an inside standpoint right now, describe the scene on the campus in the wake of this scandal.
Really, the best way to describe it is to call it surreal. I've been talking with friends about, what they're seeing as they're walking around campus, and there's this sense at University Park, Penn State's main campus, that people are in mourning. The general public, the vast majority of people here had no idea that anything like this was going to be alleged or could have possibly been going on. This has rocked the university and this local community to its very core. There's a very, very, very deep sense of sadness here, and just sort of a absolute bewilderment about where we go next.
Now, let me ask you a question. Lay me out a little bit of a timeline here, because we've got events happening over 10 years ago, and then we've got different sources reporting that Jerry Sandusky was, in fact, on campus as recently as last week.
Yeah, the timeline actually is one of the biggest unanswered questions. I mean, we do have a general sense of, because of the grand jury's report in this case, of what is alleged to have happened at what points. But Penn State has not given a whole lot of public information at this point concerning why it was only over this past weekend, 3 days ago now, that they announced that Sandusky would be banned from campus entirely, when he had been banned from a very small part of campus a number of years ago. So we have a very rough sense of what happened when, but we don't know all of the whys. We don't know why Sandusky was not pushed from campus or more of the university facilities sooner than he was.
Adam Smeltz, senior editor, StateCollege.com. Question for you. You say that he was banned from portions of the campus. What portions were those?
Well, he was banned. Actually, I misspoke a little bit there. He was banned specifically, as we understand it from the grand jury report, from the football complex, which is, let me rephrase that. He was banned from bringing children to the football complex on the campus. This is the building where the football players prepare for their games and then conduct all of their practices, where Joe Paterno has an office. He was allowed to be there. The ban was that he was not allowed to bring children with him into that building.
And the question specifically would relate to his Second Mile organization, where he did work with these adolescent and teen boys.
That's right. The Attorney General in the grand jury report suggests that most, if not all, of his victims he made initial contact with through the Second Mile, which is this youth-oriented, youth-driven service organization that he founded himself in 1977.
What caused the story to break in the direction that it did just recently in the last week or so?
Well, it broke. Actually, the initial news reports about the fact that Sandusky was being investigated came out back in I want to say April or May, about that time. The Harrisburg Patriot News broke the story that a grand jury was investigating these allegations of sexual misconduct against Sandusky. At that point, it was an investigation. The allegations were being, it is still an investigation, but at that point it was just an investigation. No charges had been filed. Now what happened last week is that the charges were formalized. The Attorney General formalized the charges. They brought Jerry Sandusky into court for his initial appearance and arraignment on Saturday. He came in handcuffs into a courtroom here in State College, and that's really where this story begins, at least this chapter of the story.
What are your feelings regarding the assertion that Joe Pa had done enough due to the fact that he had reported this legally? Do you feel like that he did enough when we talk about all of the expectations of an administrator, a teacher, a football coach? Do you feel like he did enough in reporting this?
Well, it's a very, very difficult question, and I think the fans and supporters of Penn State are divided on that question. My feeling, and I am actually an alum of Penn State, I'm a third-generation Penn Stater, which is something that's difficult to say this week. But my feeling, having followed this story, is that no, he may have legally lived up to his responsibilities, but when you look at what apparently he was aware of, assuming that he had the information he had the full information in front of him, and that the information portrayed by the grand jury is accurate, it's hard to fathom why he didn't do more.
Adam Smeltz.
Why?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's quite all right.
Adam Smeltz, senior editor, statecollege.com. Adam, is there any indication at all why? I know it's Tim Curley. It was the other administration member, Schultz. And is there any indication at this point what their defense was as to why this was not acted more thoroughly upon once it did reach their desk?
Well, that's a real point of contention right now. They are the attorneys for Schultz and Curley yesterday released statements after their court appearances that seemed to lay the blame. Depending on how you read the statements, they could be read as laying the blame at the feet of Penn State President Graham Spanier. These two administrators, Mr. Curley is the athletic director, Mr. Schultz was a senior vice president for business and finance. And their lawyers say that these men passed the information up the chain of command, and that goes to one place. That goes to the office of the president. There's some question about the level of the detail that these two men, Mr. Curley and Mr. Schultz, had. It's not entirely clear at this point, certainly not undisputed at this point, the degree of detail that was shared with them, the degree of detail involved in the allegations that they were aware of, that they passed up apparently the chain of command. But a big part of their defense, at least at this point, appears to be that they did what they were supposed to do, and they passed the information to the office of the president.
One last question for you, and I would like to have you on again here in the near future once we get a little bit more development out of the story. Do you believe that this puts an end to Joe Pa's career at Penn State before the end of the season?
I do. From every indication that I have, speaking with people who are connected to the university, even longtime supporters of the university, there are very few people who can imagine a scenario in which the football coach and the president remain at Penn State in the foreseeable future.
Adam Smeltz, senior editor, statecollege.com. Adam, we'll be looking forward to having you on in the coming weeks and months as the story does continue to come out.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.